Okay, it is 8:31 and Central Standard Time, Monday, January 4th, 2021. My very first lecture for the new year. Welcome to term two, or term one, rather, of the winter quarter. And so it's really um, uh, nice. And so we have some very interesting topics that we will be covering for the next 5.5 weeks. And I will just dive right in and talk about the expectations tonight. So let's go ahead and share my screen. And let's move you up there. So you can see that's me, my name, my phone number, and students who don't know me will come to learn that what is said in this little box is very important. And I read it. It says students can feel free to call me, text me, or email me any hour of the day except the 25th hour of the day. And you figure that one out. But the point of the matter is that if you do text me, please be sure to include your name as well as which class that you're in, and then of course let me know what it is that you need. If there's something that's extremely urgent, my recommendation is generally to text me, and then sometimes I will call you back to respond to the text rather than text you back. And then if you're busy at work, then you know, I can leave a message. But the point of the matter is that I like to address issues very, very fast, as many of you in this class know who have been students of mine in other classes know what I'm talking about in terms of that. Rubrics are very important. Notice that I highlighted that, and so it is very important for you to follow the rubrics, and we will talk about the rubrics for each and every assignment. And then APA requirements. We have resources throughout this course homepage that can help you with APA. And at this point, many of you have had other classes, so this is like a capstone, or this is actually the capstone. So that means that you will actually find yourself in a situation where you are actually about to obtain your associate's degree, and hopefully see many of you in the bachelor program. And then critical thinking. You know, critical thinking is very important to me because it is very important for you to give me your thoughts, analytical mind, and that, you know, copying and pasting information is not the big deal. The big deal is for me to see how you critique the issues, how you dealt with the issues, your spin on the issues. And that's one of our transferable skills that we'll be talking about again. And so they're very important in the grading of all assignments. And then in this additional course information, you're to conduct research for all papers. One thing you should be aware of up front, there is no textbook for this course. There always are students that ask me about the textbook. There is no textbook for this class. There wasn't one when it was an 11-week class, and there isn't one now in this class. So you're going to be dealing with the materials in the module itself, and then you're going to conduct research using sources like our library and learning center, which you all should be familiar with by now, that our librarian Dennis Johnson and our learning center Bethany Marston will be able to be there to help you. So all written assignments should be in APA format. All written assignments. That means citations in the body and references at the end. And then I'll add on it Romans 12, double space, people, not single space, double space. That's the way the paper should be. Now, if you have citations or sections that you're going to use, then you can single space those. But I'm talking about the actual paper itself. Should be a cover page for which you'll lose a point for if you don't have, and then a reference page. And then these are resources that you can utilize to help you out here. Then tutoring assistance. I always remind students that tutoring is important. It's not just for students who are struggling. It's also for students who might want to clarify some of their information or get some help. And we tell you how to get tutoring if you click on any of these links. Then I provide some articles going beyond the textbook. Well, of course, there is no textbook in this course, so you don't have to worry about that. But it does help you with citations, analytical tips for criminal justice students. This helps you with your critical skills issue, dealing with the very important requirement, critical thinking, that I talked about earlier as well. Information literacy, utilizing resources that are credible. Does anybody know one resource that if you utilize, you're going to lose points right away? You can type that in the chat box. What is that resource? Yep, Wikipedia. And it's not that I just don't like Wikipedia, it's just not credible. And the reason being is because it is a word-based system that you can find information that can be changed by anybody. So we don't let people use it. Even if it has correct information, we still don't want you to use it. Referencing for criminal justice students, this helps you too as well. Don't worry about the annotated bibliography. You really won't use that this much. There are sometimes students use it. And then there is a video in here that helps you with critical thinking. Finally, something new. I added this. Usually those of you who've been in my classes before know my story about my life. Well, I have given you an extended version of it. And you can always watch it on this course homepage by clicking on this, and it will open up and it will tell you things. And it's about an hour and some minutes, so I'm just showing you how it works. And so you can see that. So I'm gonna I'm gonna come out of that so you can watch it later. And so let me refresh this page. Okay. And there it is back. So you can look at that, but I also sent you the email link that you can look at yourself, and you'll learn about what adversity is the springboard to success is all about in more details than you probably ever heard. And then, I think it's good if you to take the time to just listen to this. You may not even listen to it all at once, and you might share it with other people. But this is a testimony, a story about your professor and the things I've overcome in life and challenges to get to where I am today. And so I include that now in all of my courses on the course homepage so that the open house is not as long as it normally has been. Rubrics are located in each written assignment. I will show you where they are. Discussion posts. There's a discussion post rubric if you click on this. And generally, you should be aware that discussion posts are due on Tuesdays, like tomorrow night, and then Saturdays. And it's done like that all the way through until you get to the last day of class, which we will see in a little bit. I'll show you on the course calendar. that's when your reply post and initial post and all your assignments, and you'll see that. So rubrics. Now here's your schedule. Now notice something here that's a little different from before you might have seen. All lectures will take place from, it says 8:30 to 10. We probably won't go that long this time because I shortened it, but we'll take our time to go over the information since it's pretty new. So weeks 2 through 5 will take place on Mondays, every Monday, beginning a week from today on the 11th, okay, at 8:30 p.m. Now, week 6 lecture will take place on Thursday, February 4th. And I'll show you why when we get to the calendar, because we'll have 2 lectures that particular week, but that's not until February. But that's a month from now, actually. This course goes so fast. And then each time I place the recordings under here, the link, so that you can be able to get to them. All right. So now before we get into anything, I want to take you and I want to show you the course calendar. Then we'll come back to this page. Here we go. Okay, here is your course calendar. This is where we are, and you click on that and it tells you what the activities are. So different goals of criminal justice, sources of law, and 3 components of criminal justice. You'll see that each week, because there is no textbook, this is the topic for the week: historical foundations of criminal justice. And then your initial post on rights will be due on tomorrow night. Then of course your that live lecture. You know what? I don't know what happened here. Why is it over here? Oh, I know why. Because it was before Tuesdays. Okay, I gotta move them over on the calendar, even though I sent the email out. Okay, let's move that to save that. Let's move that to there. Let's move that to there. And let's move that to there. So there was an error when it was Tuesday. So I'm glad I saw it. I noticed this. Now, so you'll notice that your lectures are going to be each Monday night, just like I said in the course calendar. A course schedule. People who looked at the course calendar, and they probably didn't this first time, but now you see it. And of course, in the announcement, I mentioned that it was tonight. And in the email that I sent out to you guys welcoming you, that it was tonight. All right. So anyway, back to this. So your initial post is due tomorrow night, and then your reply post is due Saturday. Then your written assignment, the 4th and 5th Amendment, which we'll talk about tonight. And then we'll talk about the rubric and everything there that's due on Sunday, as well as, that's the assignment, as well as your key phrase that I will give you tonight as well. So that's the first week, all the way through to the 10th. Now, I want to take you to and show you February. The course ends on the 9th, which would mean that I would be doing a lecture on the last day of class, but that doesn't work. So therefore, what I've done is week 5 lecture will take place on the 1st of February, and then the 4th will be week 6. Got that? Okay. So, and the reason for that is because of the fact that the course will end that following week. It doesn't make sense for me to do a live lecture on the last night of class. That's just ridiculous. So I always end up having to do that. All right. So, so anyway, but the course absolutely ends the 9th. I say this all the time, and all the time there are people who want to send me something that had at midnight, and when they do, I don't count the grade. I can't. The school won't let me, and there's nothing I can do. There are ways that you can do that, but the point of the matter is most students are in the category where the course ends on the 9th, not the 14th. Okay, so that's why it's a 5.5 course as opposed to 6 weeks course. So that's the calendar. Man, I'm glad I looked at that. So now, like I said again, you're clear that your lectures are on Mondays and not Tuesdays. All right. So now let's go back to the course homepage. And the course homepage, we have different things over here. The writing process, which you can take a look at yourself. APA assistance, and if you clicked on this, it'll open up a guide to APA and take you to that and help you with APA and give you all the things that you need to know about helping you with APA. This welcome announcement, which each of you have already seen, and it tells you things that you should already know, the importance of each of these highlighted things to check on. Okay. Since I'm in this this capstone course, I don't have to go over this as detailed because you've already dealt with this with me before. Do you have any questions about any of these tabs in here? Okay. Now, remember before, the resources tab used to be at the top, and but now it's at the left. So on with this new setup that we have. Okay. And so then here's some more details to help you. And then here is a reminder about the lectures. As I said before, every Monday from 8:30 to 9:30 beginning today. And we'll discuss the assignments and so forth and so on. All right. And so this will remain for the full course. You'll be able to see this on the course homepage. Now, before I go to week 1 announcement, I want to go back and want to take a look at the syllabus. Now be aware the syllabus has my information on it and a reminder of something that's already on the course homepage for instructor notes. And you can see the course description. And as I said, you'll notice there is no textbook involved. It tells you about deadlines, which you already know that are from the calendar with discussions. It also tells you about library sources that you can find. We already talked about that. And then these are the requirements. So you'll do your readings, which your readings basically are the things that are in each week's module that'll help you. I'll also be discussing those during the lectures. Written assignments, and then your live classroom that'll take place. We already went over that. You must give me the key phrase, even if you're in the class, in the drop-down box. And then, so here's how the grades break down. Your written assignments constitute most of your grade, 265 points, followed by your discussion posts. So if you pay attention here, everything is here. And then your live lectures, 7%. So don't miss your live lectures for a number of reasons. You don't want to miss your live lectures, or at least the recordings, because I give you information to help you complete your assignments. And see, you have an advantage. because you're getting yours early in the week. Your assignments, written assignments, are not due until Sunday. Then, of course, your reply post and initial posts are due the next day. So you have a chance to get the lecture information before you do your written assignment. You know, and I already know this, that my goal is to deal with A, B students. You never want to ask me, what does it take to get a C in my class? Inevitably, someone will come, I promise you, and ask me that question, and I won't be rude about it, but I just won't answer it because I don't believe in producing C students. These are Dean's List students, and these are honor roll students here. Nothing less, okay? Instructor participation. Now, dealing with accommodations, this is something new that they put in. Is committed to creating a learning environment that meets the need of our student bodies. And if you have a need for an accommodation, and you contact your campus accommodations coordinator to discuss accommodations regarding that, and then you can click on this link and it'll help you find it. And they will tell you whether you qualify and what you have to do to qualify. And what that involves, a lot of times, it gives you extended amount of time to do your assignments and things like that, okay? So now let's talk about the transferable skills, which you guys are all familiar with. If you notice, it says Rasmussen University. Yay! We are actually Rasmussen University. We are no longer Rasmussen College, okay? Has identified the transferable skills of communication. Very important that you be able to communicate. And in this class, we're going to deal with communication. We're going to deal with the written. We're going to deal with the oral communication. There's a module that we deal with concerning that. I am so excited. It reminds me of another class that I used to teach that they discontinued, but I have to take my hat off that those who put together this upgrade of this capstone course, I appreciate what they did. They did an awesome, awesome, awesome job. So we're going to deal with communication. Now, critical thinking, I've already talked about. Digital fluency, everything's digital these days. Everybody's got one of these things. And on these, there are these things called applications. Do you know that I can actually go on my phone, if I'm not able to get to my computer, and do my lecture from my phone, even though it would be harder because the screen's smaller for me. I can do it on my tablet and all of those kinds of things. So we're in a digital society where we try to go as much paperless as possible. I try to do that with my bills as much as possible. I mean, because I get stuff in the mail, and at least probably once a year I have to clean out that bill drawer. Everybody, you know about that bill drawer? You know the bill drawer? Yeah, sometimes it's bill drawers, and you have to go through and you have to take stuff out of there because it weighs your your drawer down. I got one. I gotta go through and clear that out. But I try to get my statements paperless. I do my banking online. I do all of that type of stuff, very secure, and I do a lot of stuff online. Almost all you guys do transferring the money. You either do Zelle if you have a bank account at a banking network, or you'll do Cash App, which I use a little bit. I don't like it a lot. And then there's Venmo. Yeah, very few people I know use Venmo. That's very interesting you would say that. I know in our church, we have Venmo set up, and nobody gives using Venmo. They'll use Cash App or either Zelle, or either there's another thing called Givelify, which that's giving through the church and so forth. The point of matter I'm saying is that everything's digital, even our classrooms, the learning systems that we utilize, the LMSs that we use. blackboard, and now with this ultra blackboard and stuff like that. And then we deal with diversity and teamwork. I'm very excited about the fact that diversity is coming to this recognized in this country. I'm happy to say, from my perspective, that we have a leader coming in this country to lead this country who believes in diversity and has demonstrated that by those who work with him. Well, yes, exciting about it. And I'm going to tell you something. Our school has already committed to diversity. In fact, yours truly is a member of the diversity and inclusion team. We believe that people should be respected from what all walks of life, from all political beliefs, all thoughts. There should be no intimidation or threats or violence or those kinds of things. People should be respected for whether they're gay or straight or whatever their religious beliefs or non-beliefs are. Diversity. And you're going to be working with those kinds of people throughout your professional career. And then teamwork, you're going to work with individuals also from various backgrounds. You're going to work with people with different areas. So in criminal justice, I've worked with detectives. I've been a police officer. I've been a lawyer, investigator, paralegal. I've worked with different individuals, part of a team, getting things together. How do you do teamwork in this class? Pretty much through the discussion post format. And that's how you'll be able to support each other, where, we make sure that when people post things in their discussion posts that we don't ridicule people or shoot them down. And so diversity and teamwork. And then ethics and professional responsibility. Whew. I could just breathe when I say that. Ethics. I believe in ethics and integrity. I have taught ethics in criminal justice. I have taught ethics in business. I have taught ethics, medical law and ethics. I am a pastor of a church and I believe in ethics. I believe in that. And I believe my leaders should be ethical and principled as well, setting good examples for my children to be able to see and follow. So we encourage ethical and professional responsibility, recognizing that there are responsibilities for the professions that you engage in that are very, very, very important. And I know already, like as a lawyer, I learned that there are canons of ethics and things that we should not be doing. And professional responsibility is important. Basically, doing things for the good of the public, good of the public. You're going to learn as a law enforcement officer, for example, if you decide to go that route, that you don't, you have a responsibility that if a partner or someone you're working with is doing something unethical, not only do you speak to them about it, but you also speak to the superiors about it, because otherwise you can be caught in and be held accountable for it as well. Professional responsibility are canons or rules that people have for operating, whether you're a probation officer, a parole officer, corrections officer, police officer, paralegal, attorney, whether you're working in forensics, scientific, make sure that the information that you're doing is very, very ethical. And then finally, information literacy. We kind of talked about that. Credible resources that you utilize to support your arguments and statements. You got to make sure that your positions that you present are backed up by credible individuals, individuals who have either done some research, or you can you got to be very careful sometimes with resources, because sometimes they're very biased. Okay, but the point of the matter is that we've already spoke that Wikipedia is definitely part of not using that when it comes to information literacy. So why am I talking about these? transferable skills. We call them transferable skills because employers have told us as an institution that they will be looking for individuals to hire that satisfy all of these skills and that you are excellent and well prepared. And so our goal at this school is to graduate students that are fit the mode of all of these transferable skills. Okay. Regular attendance, you know about how that works there. You can look at that. Now let's talk about the late assignment policy. You should know already this, but I'll repeat it, that late assignments can be submitted up to 7 days after the deadline. However, each day that it's late, you're going to lose 10%. So let's say you have a perfect paper that's 100 on Sunday and you submit it Monday. Then you could end up getting a 90. Now that's assuming that the paper satisfies all the other requirements. I'm trying to give you a hypothetical based on a paper that satisfies the rubric, however it was late. Well, then by Tuesday, it's down to 80. By Wednesday, it's down to 70. By Thursday, it's down to 60. So even though it says 7 days, you still could lose 70% of your grade and get a 30. Okay? Now that's not passing, all right? Now, when it comes to discussion posts have to be submitted on the dates that they are due. For each day that you're late, you will lose 1 point. That's the way I do it. So your discussion posts are due Tuesday, and then reply posts, initial posts rather, and then your reply posts are due Saturday. And I encourage students to reply to more than one post. It makes the discussion forum more interesting each week. And it says you'll be asked to complete an alternate assignment. We don't do that. And everybody knows I don't do that. Okay. Now, the point of the matter is that the discussion posts are probably one of the easiest assignments to do. And so you want to do them. Now, they should be submitted no later than Saturday. If you submit discussion posts on Sunday, you'll get no points. However, there is an exception. If you submit your initial post, even though it'll be late by Saturday, you submit your reply post by Sunday, you will lose 1 point. That's something that I've been doing and continue to do it, and most professors aren't doing that. They will give you a 0 because the discussion forums ended, okay? And so it's very important for you to understand. Notice it said discussion posts made after the due date, post in the current week will not be accepted. And that Sunday is after that. But I use my discretion to be able to help my students there in terms of that. Remember, your discussion post should be detailed. Don't just give me one-liners. If you do, you're going to lose points or get a 0. I won't recognize one-liners like good post, or I like your post, or I agree with your post. Elaborate on it. We want to see critical thinking in both the initial post and the reply post. Citations are not required, but I appreciate them as well. Now, let's get to the next statement, which you already know. I've already talked about the 10% grade loss. It says, instructors may waive the late penalty for extenuating circumstances. Many of you already know how I feel about that. But the point of the matter is I'm very liberal when it comes to, but I gotta know. I gotta know about it. How can you let me know? I already told you earlier when I first started this discussion today. You can text me. You can email me. You can call me. But the best thing to do is to text me if you're having an issue. Now, one of the issues that students have is sometimes they say, well, I had to work longer hours. If you are in an area where you are how should I put it like this? In an area that you work where you must work because the situation with COVID-19, like first responders, of course, hospital people, people who work in the jails, the prisons, people who even work in some of the food service situations. It depends. I may waive those assignments, but I've got to know. I've got to know. I've got to know. Don't worry about this next line because we don't do labs or exams. Okay. Under no circumstances may students submit work after the last day of the academic term unless an incomplete grade has been requested and granted beforehand. All right, they added that in. We used to didn't do that. And then it tells you how to get the incomplete grade policy. By the way, if you come to me in week 5 and say, I owe weeks 1 through 3, 1 through 4, I need it incomplete, it's going to be very unlikely that you're going to get it. It's going to be very unlikely because the fact that we're not going to do that. But we'll talk about that as on a case-by-case basis. And then your academic integrity policy is very important. Pay close attention to every one of these things. They're very, very, very important. And that's it for the syllabus. Okay. Okay, so now we can go back to the course homepage because I've shown you the calendar. So each week there will be an announcement, at least one. Sometimes I have special announcements. And it tells you what the topic is. So this week is Historical Foundations of Criminal Justice. And then, so you're going to complete the activities, different goals of criminal justice, sources of law, and 3 components of criminal justice. And then I tell you about our lecture schedule and so forth. Then it tells you about your discussion assignment and when it's due. It reminds you it's due tomorrow, and then reply Saturday. Finally, complete the written assignment, the 4th and 5th Amendment. And we're going to go over that in the rubric in just a minute. The course project, we don't have that anymore. Yeah, they don't have that anymore. We took that out. So let me do this. I'm going to show you something. I got to delete that. You'll see how I do that. Okay, I can edit it. You can't do this because you're not me, but I can do this. Take this line out. Might confuse some people. They say, what about the course project? Well, there is none. So we hit submit. And then I go back. It should be gone. Okay, let's see. Well, I know why it's not gone. It's because of this. Got to do this. Okay, then I got to come back. Got to get out of it completely. These are the other classes I'm teaching, by the way. So if you look at it now, it should be gone. Oh, I know, I forgot to refresh it. Refresh it. Refresh it now. Okay, now it better be gone. Yep. Okay. So anyway, there is none. So reminder about open house taking place tonight and lasting 1.5 hours at least. But like I said, we'll probably be out before that. So start strong and finish strong, and then You will learn that my motto is adversity is the springboard to success. I told you over here, this video, and also the email of the link that I sent you that you should have for that. Did you got the link that I sent regarding that video? Did you get it? The link to adversity as a springboard to success? Oh, okay. Yeah, so take a look at that. You won't get a grade for it, but I mean, some of you guys already know my story, but it gives more details because I took my time and made it separate. Okay. So now, having done that, let's get into this week's module, the assignments. So the Fourth and Fifth Amendment of the Constitution. Now, the Fourth Amendment, for your information, is dealing with, and do you know what Fourth Amendment has to do with? Yes, search and seizure, dealing with warrants or warrantless searches and so forth. So the Fourth Amendment deals with that of the Constitution. All right. And then, you should always have included your Fourth Amendment cited in your paper. The Fifth Amendment, you know what that has to do with? How about the right of self-incrimination? The right not to self-incriminate. Okay, that's where what's the landmark case for the Fifth Amendment that a famous case that if you've been in my classes before that I talk about. Yeah, people plead the Fifth, but what landmark case has to do with the Fifth Amendment and um, confessions? Yeah. Uh, okay. I think I was gonna say, oh, I know. Here, Arizona. Yeah, it's Miranda versus Arizona, and that's the case that I've talked about before. I told you that one of my professors wrote the briefs that was the methods that were criticized by the Supreme Court in that, and he was personally maligned because of that. And Fred Enbow, he spent his career writing amicus briefs. And so therefore Miranda is still the law, still the law. So anyway, imagine that you were a police officer in the 50s and then you're going to look at this scenario. Explain the crime control and due process models as well as the Fourth and Fifth Amendment that provide rights to offenders during questioning. You kind of already know that what we talked about. We just mentioned it. Using course lectures for this module, specifically the timeline American criminal justice system, and research at least 2 additional articles, okay, to illustrate the steps you would take as an arresting officer to ensure that you didn't violate their rights. There's plenty out there. Discuss the limitations you face um, dealing with the Fourth and Fifth Amendment. Your paper should be 750 to 1,000 words in length. Now, I hate they do it that way, but the fact of the matter is that it generally boils down to um, at least 1.5 pages, at least, okay? So you want to make sure you do that. Now, don't worry about your length. Just write the paper, all right? You'll see the rubric in just a minute. Uh, And then APA guide, we talked about that, and help with APA, and research from a librarian, and then submit it according to the due date, as I already told you. Save it as a Word document. Now, let's look at the rubric that we will go as far as grading. This is very important. Now, here's what I want to tell you. Ignore this, ignore this, ignore this, because you want to maximize your points. This is the column I want you all to focus on. I always teach my students that I grade from the perspective that you're going to be a master. And if you don't do this, so let's say crime control and due process models, 10 points. Clear and comprehensive explanation of crime control and due process models of justice, as well as the 4th and 5th Amendments. You have to research that. Steps the arresting officer should take. Clear and comprehensive illustration of the steps should take to ensure a suspect's rights are not violated. Okay? And then clear and comprehensive discussion limitations at hearing. Now, I would say that you need to make sure that when you do this, you have some resources to support your statements. Remember, if it's APA, it's going to be citations in the body and references at the end. So somebody will say, well, the rubric didn't say that. It's APA. We already know that already. That's probably the one issue that I don't like about their rubric, is that they didn't include that. But the key thing is that you want to make sure that you provide. This topic has plenty of information that you can utilize and find for that. Any questions about this assignment? Okay. These are all going to be very interesting papers. Okay, but notice it says APA, APA, APA format with in-text citations and a reference page, though it's not in the rubric, but it is in the instructions. Okay, I point that out to you very, very easily for you to see. And then the last thing in here, two things actually, your discussion. Okay, now, so you have a scenario here, and you're going to go over this scenario. And then A, if you were a defense attorney, what arguments would you make to have the confession excluded from evidence? If you were the judge, would you permit the confession to be used in evidence at trial? In your response post, respond to another student's, but you should be able to support your positions as well using this scenario. Very, very, very interesting. Very interesting. I love this. Any question about the discussion assignment? Yeah, it is. This is. I'm excited. When I looked through to see this course, I was excited. And then the live lecture, of course, that's taking place right now. I'll give you the key phrase that you need to put in. So now let's go back and let's talk about the lesson content. So let's talk about the different goals of the criminal justice system with a timeline. If you click on these, going back all the way, and then you're going to read this information yourself, and you're going to discover that, well, let's just go ahead and click on the diamond to learn more. From the 30s, the FBI started out and brought in technology and professionalism, mandated that police rely on arrests, and remained until the 70s. Okay. Then in between that time, the civil rights of 60s and 70s and the due process era came about, where in the 60s and 70s, women rights and civil rights began to take place, such as the Civil Rights Act of 1964. And there were many changes that took place. There were cases that dealt with equal protection of the laws, dealing with the rights of individuals, to the Sixth Amendment, right to an attorney, the famous case of Gideon versus Wainwright, and Powell versus Illinois. These were famous cases that were involved with that individual had a right to an attorney. And there were a whole lot of societal things that happened to create for law enforcement to have to deal with. So let me just put it this way: individual rights started coming to the surface. Due process era, which meant basically you have a right to a hearing, you have a right to cross-examine your witnesses, obtain evidence of the things that they have against you, those kinds of things. Okay, and so before we go down here, then we come here to the crime control. The disorder, riots, and unrest of 60s, 70s took its toll, and crime went up. And so the crime control model, strict model of incapacitation, incarceration was implemented. In other words, people were being locked up for longer periods of time. At the same time, the patrol car became popular, which took officers, they used to walk the beats and so forth, and work for their shifts, and were more effective in terms of being able to deal with crime. These are just thumbnails. Then we get to 2000 to the present time. Moving forward with the due process model of policing, which deals with functions of police dealing with operating almost as social workers and dealing with community policing, where you had, remember one of the closest things to community policing we had as kids were the, what was that cop called, the police officer, trying to remember, that used to come, Officer Friendly. Officer Friendly. Do you remember hearing about Officer Friendly? Or was that before your time? Do you remember hearing about Officer Friendly, where the police would come and talk about the good things, you know, and those kinds of things? Yeah, that was before your time. But you do remember DARE. I know you know about the DARE officers, because the DARE officers, yeah, that's kind of a part of it. And what they did was starting to deal with the community. And so now we're at the point now where we're training police to recognize psychological as well as mental disorders. And that's drug abuse. And you know, drugs, as I teach the course on drugs and crime. Were you in my class on drugs and crime? Yeah, so you know my position in terms of that rehabilitation and helping individuals to deal with the drug problems. And then also, you know that one of the things that we law enforcement officers were starting to do was this thing called deflection, where they would, if a person was on drugs, they could come to the police station, and instead of being arrested with drugs on them, they could get help and be sent to get help. Because as I already said before, many times in that class, there is a strong correlation between crime and drugs. And so, let's see, I saw that, I didn't see that too fast. Let's get that. In the past 5 years or so. Yep. And you know what? That's a true thing, because you know what has happened is that there have been people who were killed that didn't have to be killed because they were either high on something, or either they had a mental problem. So and their police officers need that kind of training. And so that's where the social work aspects come of it. You know, there were people originally who understood law enforcement going way back from earlier I was talking about, that our job is just to lock the criminal up. Well, how about just like the incapacitation and punishment? And if you took my corrections course, were you in my corrections course? Yeah. So I talked about rehabilitation, and we're going to talk about that in this course. How important rehabilitation is in terms of helping our society out. So, so those are that's the timeline. Now, moving along and comparing and dealing with this, we started out from the old the British system, dealing with as it wasn't really justice, but we began to adopt our Constitution and the Bill of Rights, uh, first 10 amendments of the Constitution, and provided this country with rules for how we deal with criminal behavior, and set out statutes. Jurisdictions have their own laws. Each state has their own laws, and then the federal government deals with Chapter 18 of the United States Code, USC, is all the criminal laws in the federal level. So the Bill of Rights protects individuals and deals with cases like the Fourth, the Fifth, and we already talked about the Sixth Amendment, and dealing with privacy and search and seizure and self-incrimination and the right to a speedy trial. So here's the criminal process, pretty much. Um, Arrest. Now, by the way, how does a person know when they're under arrest? See if you how good your memory would be. How do you know when a person is under arrest? Excellent. That is exactly correct. When they are not free to leave, that is a definition of under arrest. And then that is the point in time when we get into dealing with the Miranda warnings and things of that nature. So let's say the first day you're arrested, and then you're booked. When you're booked, you know, your fingerprints are taken, your mug shots taken, and then you have your first appearance within 72 hours of arrest. Generally, what is that first appearance for? Do you remember? Yep, a bond hearing. Yep, exactly. To set bail. And so that's within 272 hours of arrest. That's the law. And then within 30 to 60 days, you are arraigned, which means formal charges. And then it goes from arraignment to the formal charges and to discovery. Now, do you know what discovery is? In some jurisdictions, it's called disclosure. Well, discovery is when each side, the defense, pretty much the defense requests in what we call a motion for disclosure or discovery, um, requesting what information that the prosecution has to witnesses and so forth and so on, and information, what evidence they have to charge that person. In some jurisdictions, it's called disclosure, but discovery is so during that period, we file a motion called the motion for discovery, and we give it to the judge, and we give it to the prosecution, asking them for information that they have to substantiate the charges that they have. Early resolution, if available, is offered. Oh, okay. Yeah, discovery in some jurisdictions, and it's called disclosure. If you remember, did you see the movie My Cousin Vinny? Oh, okay. If you see it, you'll know what I'm talking about. They use disclosure as opposed to discovery. But the point of the matter is it's for discovering the evidence that the other side has. And it's a process that you go through. And it says you start it within 30 days, but it can go a long time because it sometimes takes a while for the prosecution to provide the information and so forth. By the way, the defense does not have to provide any discovery because who has the burden of proof? Who has the burden of proof? Defense or prosecution? Prosecution, that's right. And the standard used for finding a person guilty is what? Beyond a reasonable doubt. Get that question mark off of there. Yeah, that's what it is. Get that question mark off of there. Yeah, get that question mark off. Tell all my students that. That's because you're not sure. Yes, that's the correct answer. Okay. So, and then pretrial intervention, we talk about dealing with, well, okay. So before we do that. So you got pretrial intervention, motion to suppress. Now, in the motion to suppress, what we will usually do is file a motion to suppress. What we want to do is we've discovered through discovery certain evidence that they're going to use, and we don't want it used, such as a confession that was illegally obtained, such as evidence, physical evidence that was illegally obtained, such as our client may have a psychological problem, and we want to have them to be analyzed by a psychiatrist to determine whether or not they are mentally capable. So we'll file a motion to suppress the statements of or information, and there is a separate hearing that takes place. Okay. It says continuation of case if no settlement or dismissal. So we get down here. The pretrial hearing is usually within 60 to 90 days, and it can continue on. We may come up with a plea deal. A plea deal, when we do that, we call that what? What do we call that? What do we call that? What's a plea deal? What do we usually use the term for? Anybody remember? Plea bargaining. Plea bargaining. And you should be aware, and I've discussed this before in my criminal law classes, that 90% of the cases don't go to trial. There are pleas that are entered. And it's not just the public defenders who plead people guilty. I, as a criminal defense lawyer, and I was good at it, my jury verdicts were in the high 90 percentiles of not guilty. But there were times when I had to tell my clients, we want to work a deal. In Illinois, we call it Section 402 of the Illinois Code. I think they've changed that since that time, but that was the section where we have plea bargaining and so forth, where we get a pre-sentence investigation ordered by the public defender, not the public defender, but the probation officer, and then the defense attorney, whether it's whether it's a public defender or either a prosecutor, meet with the judge to discuss possibly disposing of the case by entering a plea. Depositions. Well, these generally don't take place in criminal cases. not really. We don't really have depositions so much. Okay, that's usually a civil issue. And then the trial, 90 to 175 days unless waived. And then if a person is found guilty, then there's sentencing, or if the person has pled guilty, a sentencing as well. So those are kind of the rough steps of dealing with the criminal case process. That's roughly it. Now, the reason why this arrow is here is because we can go straight from here to here, and then file motions to suppress. So that's why that is there. So sources of law. Sources of law are several. The U.S. Constitution, we've already talked about, and the Bill of Rights. And then there are statutes or laws for each jurisdiction. They have their own codes. Our system is broken down into 3 separate sections. There's the legislative branch, which consists of the House and the Senate on the federal level, and most states have something similar to that as well. And they're the ones who pass the laws called statutes or codes. The executive branch is responsible for enforcing the law. That is usually the police department, the governor, the mayor, or the president on the federal level. Then finally, the judicial branch, the courts who decide that. What's the name of the highest court in the land? You failed this class if you don't know this. Yeah, but you got to call it. That's okay. How do I want you to say it? I always tell students how to say it. You got part of it right. Nope. You're missing something very important about the highest court in the land. Yeah, you do. How about the U.S. Supreme Court? Yeah, I know after I said it, but U.S. or United States Supreme Court. That's how I want you to get accustomed to, and that's how I always say it. Do you remember me always saying that? When you're talking about the highest court, refer to it as the U.S. or United States Supreme Court. I always say that. So anyway, we have due process, which means, need to add U.S. in there. And the reason being is because many states have a trial court, they have an appellate court, and they have a Supreme Court. And so that's how the highest court in the land is called the United States or U.S. Supreme Court. And so due process is a system that gives fairness and procedure and safeguards, as I said, that from arrest to sentencing and dealing with corrections. So it gives you a right to a fair hearing, a speedy trial, a right to an attorney, not to testify if you don't want to. And then we talked about the Miranda rights and individuals waiving those rights for individuals that have it violated, then motion to suppress can keep the statements out. So anyway, reviewing the 4th Amendment, the 5th, the 6th, the 14th Amendment, and the 14th Amendment is where the due process clause comes in. And it applies also these to the states, these 4th, 5th, and 6th. So the 4th Amendment is, as I said earlier, unreasonable search and seizure. Self-incrimination is the 5th. And the 6th is the right to trial and the right to an attorney. And the 14th makes due process binding on the states. of each of these amendments. Here we go again, the U.S. Supreme Court. And then I mentioned, remember mentioning Gideon versus Wainwright? That is a case that has to do with the right to counsel. And then Miranda rights, Miranda versus Arizona as well. Okay. Now we have this new thing that is called DNA, and we're going to talk about that in future weeks to come. The most revolutionary thing that has happened in criminal justice, where it has reached the stage where it has allowed individuals to be exonerated for offenses that they did not commit. It says supporters of these laws maintain that suspects that expanding DNA databases will allow law enforcement to identify suspects, particularly those in unsolved cases and potentially future crimes. And then also you should be aware that it helps to exonerate individuals for crimes as well. We already for years and years and years have dealt with the fingerprints and things of that nature. So the Fourth Amendment search and seizure issue has to do with obtaining samples of DNA, like drawing blood and things like that. There are some Fourth Amendment issues, unreasonable search and seizure. So we'll be discussing those things as well. Okay. And you could take a look at each of these different things. You see here, if you click on these, more information that will help you, like the Supreme Court. And what they do, since Marbury versus Madison, a famous case, they have decided what the law is, interpreted the law. How many justices on the United States Supreme Court when it's complete? How many? Which one is it? It is 9. It's an odd number. Now, it happens that, as you know, what happened when Ruth Bader Ginsburg died before the last justice was selected, that the court consists of 8, but the peak is 9 at this time. There's been some talk about increasing it, but you know what? It's generally not good to have a 10 or even number, because usually you got decisions that are 5-4. The majority will rule there. And so anyway, you can look at that. What are the 3 components? As I already talked about, you got the police, who operate on the executive branch, the courts. And so the courts determine what the rights are of individuals, whether they're guilty or not guilty. Corrections, and all of these have to do with this: the duty to fine, punish, and rehabilitate offenders. That's primarily what corrections is for, rehabilitation. And you can read through this on yourself. You will be aware that there's a standard before a warrant can be issued or arrest of probable cause. And then before searching, unless there's an exception, a search warrant or arrest warrant from a judge is necessary. Then the court and the prosecution. The court hears the case. The prosecutor represents the people. The defense attorney represents the defendant. You have a right to a jury trial. That also is in the Sixth Amendment. And so you have a right to a fair and impartial jury. And that is one of my favorite ways of trying cases, where generally in our jurisdiction it was 12 on the jury. And then the defendant is the person, of course, who's charged with the crime. Okay. And so those are the components and everything that's involved. All right. So, do you have any questions about any of that stuff? Any questions? What you did have one just from curiosity. Go ahead. What's the question? Type it in. Well, here's the deal, so you understand how discovery works, not just in federal cases, but in state cases too. When you file a motion for discovery, then the other side has the responsibility of providing information to you. You can determine as defense attorney to, or together by agreement, to continue a case, and thus the speedy trial aspects of it stops and starts. So therefore, it sometimes takes a long time to get evidence, not just in a federal case, but in many criminal cases. It takes a long time because the discovery period is the period where you're getting information that's necessary to prepare an adequate defense. So it could be a short period of time, but most of the time, most cases do last at least a year or more. That's why it's important for individuals to be able to make bail if they can. Okay, does that make sense? Yep. So yeah, so discovery can go on for a while because it takes a little while to get all the information. Anything else? Okay, well, I got to give you a key phrase before I let you go here. And the key phrase, and like I say, normally we'll be through by 9:30, but I told you we might go to 10, but it's 10 minutes to. Due process. That's what I want you to give me. Give me that due process and you'll get your points. Okay? Anything else? Okay. All right. So you have a good evening. Whatever you do, stay safe. And remember, we're still in this pandemic. And I just before I came on was looking at two very young people in their 20s in our area here in Illinois who were completely healthy that passed away from COVID-19. So this is no joke, people. And yeah, it's scary and sad, but you got to be smart. You know, I wear a mask and I stay in as much as I possibly can. But when I do go out, I do that. I didn't have a lot of people over for the holidays at all. And then as soon as the shot, the vaccine's available for me, which I'm 70 years old, and I'm in what they call the high risk group, being an African American male of 70 years old. I qualify. I think I'm in the third group that comes up with it. So I will be taking it for sure. I don't know. Somebody asked me which one I prefer. Whichever one that they give me. They said that the I think it's the Moderna is one shot, I believe it is, and I think that the Pfizer is two shots, um, 2 weeks apart, and so forth. And so even after you get those shots, you're still gonna still be protected, because I listened to one of my favorite individuals that I like to listen to and pay close attention to concerning this issue, and I respect science, is Dr. Fauci. I love Anthony Fauci. I think he is par excellence, and he knows what he's talking about. And this coronavirus, one of the saddest parts, and I'm going to say, and then I'm going to let you go. It's been politicized, and how in the world you gonna politicize safety? That's like people with seatbelts, okay? It's so left out the shots. Yeah, so you're in Wisconsin then, right? Yeah, I know. I heard about that. Yeah, and you know why he said it? He said it had something to do with DNA. I said, come on, fella. You know, yeah, they said that he's been charged with a felony, but he may be charged with a misdemeanor, because they said, now listen to this, they said that they still might be able to utilize that dose. I don't want that. I'll ask, is this the dose? Some of that stuff that he left out, because I don't want I don't want to take the chance with that. Okay, but yeah, and then as soon as you said that, I knew you were in Wisconsin, because that's the only place that I've seen that. Yeah, no, I don't want no room temperature vaccine either. I took my flu shot finally. I fought that for a long time, but I'm glad I did. So, and anyway, I'm trying to take care of myself and stay safe, and believing that by the end of this year, hopefully, we will be able to get things back to normal. But we got to listen to what the CDC and Dr. Fauci and those guys are saying. So anyway, good night. I'll see you next Monday at 8:30 p.m. Central Standard Time. So again, good night and stay safe.